The third pillar of faith, knowledge of the actions of God involving 10 principles. The first basic principle is that the knowledge that every event in this world is His action, creation and invention. There is no creator of it except God. He is well regulated and the creation and gave it its due power and motion. All the actions of His servants are His creation and keep connection with His power, confirming thereby His words. God is the creator of everything. 9:102. God created you and that you make. 37:96. Whatever is in your conversation, hidden or open, He truly knows the innermost recesses of your heart. What does He not know then when He has created, when He is subtle and cognizant? He ordered men to take precaution in their actions, words, and secret matters and thoughts, as He knows the orientation of their actions and gave proof of His knowledge by creating creations. How will He not be the creator of the actions of men when He has got full power without any decrease? His power is connected with the movements of men. All motions are similar and are connected with the power of God. What then would prevent its connection is the case of some actions, and would not prevent it is the case of other actions when all are similar. How could animal be independent of the Creator when the wonderful workmanship of the spiders, the bees, and other animals amaze the wisest and the intelligent minds? Who has got the power of spatiality in these creations except God? These animals themselves do not know the benefits they produce. They cannot be called the cause of workmanship. Now think that all creations bow down to one who is the creator of the heavens and the earth. The second principle is that God is the creator of the power of men, does not prevent them from doing voluntary actions by way of acquisition, for God created power and the container of power, choice as well as the container of choice. Power is an attribute of a man, though it is a creation of God and it is not acquired by man. Motion is also the creation of God and an attribute of man acquired on the strength of power, because the power with which he was created is his attribute, but the motion is connected with the attributes of power, and that for this reason of connection it has been named the power of motion. The power of motion is not the result of compulsor of any man, as he can move according to his will and knows the difference between compulsion and volition. How can his motion be his creation when he does not know the different parts of the acquired actions and their numbers? When these two matters are disproved, namely the matter that actions are a result of compulsion and that the matter that they are the result of volition, then there remains the middle position, which is that actions are voluntary in a fixed manner through the power of God by invention and through the power of man by acquisition. God has no necessity of keeping connection with the container of power in the matter of creation, because the power of God is eternal and its connection with the world is eternal. The third basic principle is that the knowledge that though the actions of man are his acquisitions, they are nonetheless not outside the will of God. Neither a twinkling of an eye or a sudden rise of thought in the mind in the visible and the invisible world occurs except through God's order, power, and will. Good or evil, benefit or loss, belief or infidelity, knowledge or ignorance, success or failure, guidance or misguidance, sin or virtue, shirk or Iman come from God. There is none to reject God's commands, none to disobey God's decree. He guides whom He wishes and misguides who He wishes. There is none to question God of what He does, but the people will be questioned. 21:33. As said, what He wills occurs, and what He does not will does not occur. God says if God willed, He would have guided all correctly, 13:30. Had I wished, I would have given every soul its guidance, 31:13. He who thinks that God does not will sins and evil as they are evils, and that it is the devil who wills them, is cursed. The devil cannot will anything. Tell me how a Muslim can deny the supreme rule of God. If the power of a village chief is curtailed, he will think it is dishonorable. He will think it's derogatory to his position if the actions are conducted according to the wishes of his enemy. The result will be that many will be out of control. Now it has seen that the evil deeds are predominant in men. If every sin is done against the will of God, God's helplessness is going to be seen. When it is established that all actions of men are creations of God, it follows that evil actions are also a result of God's will. Question may be asked how God commands to do what he does not wish and how he prohibits what he wishes. In reply, we shall say that command is one thing and will is another thing. Thus, if a master beats his slave, the ruler rebukes the master for beating his slave. The master shows reason that his slave does not obey him. As a proof, he orders that his slave to arrange the bridle of his horse before the ruler, though he knows that the slave will not obey it. If he does not order him, his objection before the ruler does not stand, and if he wishes that his order should be obeyed, it amounts to his murder. It is impossible. Fourth basic principle is that God is generous in inflicting trouble on men by his commands. Neither creation nor imposition or obligation is necessary for God, although the Mu'tazilites hold that they were necessary for the welfare of men. But it is impossible, since he is only being to enjoin and prohibit. How will it be limited by compulsion? The object of compulsion is one of two things. Such a work which is given up will cause harm in the future, as it is said that it is compulsory on men to obey God, who will punish him in the hereafter by the fire of hell, or it is to avoid such present harm which is injurious, as it is said that to drink water for a thirsty man is compulsory, so that he may not die. Secondly, it is such a work the negation of which seems impossible. Thus it is said that the existence of a thing which is known is necessary, because if it does not exist, it becomes an impossibility. If it occurs, knowledge becomes ignorance. The fifth basic principle is that God can inflict on men what is beyond his capacity. If were it not possible, it would have been impossible for men to pray for removing it. The people prayed, O our Lord, lay not upon us for which we have no strength. 2:246. This is against the belief of the Mu'tazilites. The sixth principle is that God is free to punish a man in spite of his virtues and to reward a man in spite of his sins. The Mu'tazilites hold the contrary view. God has got freedom of action because his servants, and it is impossible that his servants will oppose his freedom. Tyranny means to dispose a man from his possessions, but it is impossible in the case of God, as he does not dispossess others, in view of the fact that the kingdom of the heaven and the earth is his. It is proved by this. Slaughter of animal is infliction of pain on animals and men. Various tortures inflicted on animal have not been preceded by any offense or crimes committed by these animals. It is said that these animals would be raised up again and awarded for this which is incumbent upon God. Then we would say that every ant killed under the feet and every bug crushed would be brought back to life. It would violate the dictates of reason and law, as nothing is incumbent upon God. The seventh basic principle is that God does with regard to men what he wills, and it is not incumbent on God to do whatever is good for them. It has already been stated that nothing is compulsory on God, but his dealings are not intelligible to men, because there is nobody to question him, whatever he does, but men are subjects to questions, the Mu'tazilites say that it is incumbent upon God to do whatever is salutary for men. Eighth principle is that to have knowledge of God and to obey His commands are compulsory for men, not on account of the reason as the Mu'tazilites say, but on account of Sharia. Sharia declares poisonous serpents beyond death, while reason, in realizing that Sharia foretells, thinks it possible and urges that precaution should be taken against any possible punishment. But reason itself does not lead to that knowledge of harm. If a man warns by saying a lion stands behind you, he should at once take to his heels without searching for a reason. The ninth basic principle is that sending of prophets to men is not impossible. Some say that there has been no use in sending them because reason renders it unnecessary. This is false, because reason does not support the actions which will lead to the salvation in the hereafter, just as it does not guide them to discuss the medicines which are useful for health. The necessity of prophets for men is like the physicians for men. The integrity of physicians is known by the experience, and the truthfulness of the prophets is known by their miracles. 10th basic principle is that God sent Muhammad, the last prophet, and as an abrogator of all previous laws of the Jews, the Christians, and the Sabians, God helped him with miracles and wonderful signs such as splitting of the moon into two parts, the praise of the pebbles, causing the mute animals to speak, water flowing from his fingers, etc. The open miracle with which he guided the Arabs is the Quran, as the beauty of the language throughout the Quran is unparalleled and the Arabs could not surpass it in spite of their eloquence. Though the Prophet was illiterate and he did not learn how to read or write, yet God informed him in the Quran about the histories of various nations. The information that he gave about the previous nations in the Quran, being an illiterate person, the prophecies he made about the future events, and the glue he gave to the unknown things are his miracles. For instance, God says, "You will enter the sacred mosque if God wills, having your heads shaved and your head short and your hair short." 48:27. The verse, "The Romans will be vanquished in the land nearby, but after their defeat they will defeat them in a few years." 31. The object of these verses is to prove the truth of the messenger by the way of miracles. Jazakallah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.